The sports world literally cannot stand A'ja Wilson. A'ja Wilson has won yet another MVP, and sports fans have done a Dikembe Mutombo no in regards to giving a rat's ass.
Ja Wilson's post-game meltdown after the Fever's crushing victory didn't just make headlines, it absolutely detonated across the internet. Here you have a player with 4 MVP trophies to her name, a bona fide superstar who has dominated the WNBA with an iron will for years, suddenly losing her composure in a raw public display that fans couldn't stop talking about. Because the collapse wasn't merely about the final score, it was about the collision of immense pride, suffocating pressure, and the crushing weight of impossible expectations all detonating at once.
I mean, there are people that are like, I literally have no idea who this is. On ESPN's post about A'ja Wilson, one guy makes a very, he comes right out and just says it, outside of literally Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, he's like, I don't know who the hell this is.
What truly detonated this moment into a full-blown spectacle was the immediate and overwhelming public reaction. Instead of the expected sympathy for a fallen champion, fans appeared to gleefully revel in the chaos, passionately cheering on the Fever, while simultaneously and mercilessly mocking Wilson's very public tantrum. For a league that is so desperately fighting for mainstream attention, this raw, unfiltered scene became a viral flashpoint, a perfect, brutal illustration of just how quickly raw emotion can be transformed into viral entertainment. And yet, this was not just a single isolated outburst. It blew the doors wide open to much bigger, more uncomfortable questions about Ja Wilson's carefully crafted image, her undisputed dominance, and the fiery, often personal rivalries that are now shaping the modern WNBA.
I don't know if you could argue that Kelsey Mitchell got robbed. Some people are. But for whatever reason, A'ja Wilson does not translate for this league.
The playoff matchup between the Las Vegas Aces and the Indiana Fever was never expected to be easy, but absolutely nobody could have predicted the sheer stunning humiliation that ultimately unfolded. The Indiana Fever, a team that many critics had condescendingly dismissed earlier in the season, played with a level of ferocious intensity that left the reigning champions completely and utterly stunned. From the very opening tip, Indiana looked sharper, they looked faster, and they looked hungrier, while the mighty Aces, in stark contrast, struggled to find any semblance of their usual rhythm. For Ja Wilson, the undisputed face of the franchise, and the league's decorated 4-time MVP, the frustration visibly built with every single missed shot, every defensive lapse, and every referee's whistle that didn't go her way. By the time the final buzzer mercifully sounded, what should have been just another routine night of dominance had devolved into a sobering, complete, and total collapse.
A'ja Wilson is in the league of her own as the only WNBA player to win the MVP 4 times. Nobody gives a rat's ass. Laughing my ass off, how many times will this be posted by this network? We get it, Disney.
The Indiana Fever had just snatched a monumental series-altering statement win, and Ja Wilson simply could not hide her raw, unfiltered emotions. The television cameras naturally captured every single compelling second of it. Wilson was seen slamming the ball down in a fit of pure anger. She gestured furiously at the referees, and she even reportedly barked at her own teammates during tense, volatile huddles. The fans, watching both at home and inside the arena, saw not the poised, unflappable leader they were so used to, but a mega star who was visibly unraveling under the immense pressure of the moment. Her tantrum became instant, viral fodder, replayed relentlessly across social media with captions that ranged from the gleefully mocking to the purely celebratory. And in a fascinating twist, instead of criticizing her for losing control, a significant number of fans actually seemed to love the spectacle. They saw raw, unfiltered emotion, a welcome break from the polished, media-trained image that Wilson usually presents. Some even argued it made her more relatable, a truly human moment in a sport that is often accused of being both overlooked and overproduced. But lurking just beneath the surface of those viral clips, the loss itself exposed a much deeper, more troubling issue.
The WNBA's got a serious problem with having a flippin' clue on how to market their people. It's wild. Buddy, no one cares. See? I'll probably get smashed for this comment, but I think Kelsey Mitchell should have gotten a closer look, considering not just her numbers, but more so the fact that the team was out due to injuries.
The Indiana Fever finally secured a playoff win that fans had been waiting years for, but leave it to the WNBA to twist what should have been pure joy into yet another fiasco. Instead of the headlines being about Lexi Hull's game-winning steal or Kelsey Mitchell and Aliyah Boston's heroics, the story turned into, believe it or not, a confrontation between Sophie Cunningham and a league-hired security guard. Sophie, rocking a bulky leg brace and standing nowhere near game ready, wasn't running onto the court or instigating trouble, and yet a security guard decided to play sheriff and bark at Sophie as if she'd just rushed the floor mid-brawl. In this video, we'll break down this incident and reveal what Sophie said that's turning heads. But first, do you think Sophie is being singled out? Let us know down in the comments below. Here's the question everyone's now asking: was this just a clueless overreaction from one overzealous rent-a-cop, or was it part of the larger, more troubling pattern that we've already seen in the WNBA, targeting certain players who don't fit their preferred narrative? When you look at the history, it's hard not to think Sophie was singled out deliberately, and her reaction, calm but defiant, showed she wasn't about to be intimidated by some glorified hall monitor. The setting should have been nothing but celebratory.
89-73, they went into Las Vegas and whipped the dog shit out of Las Vegas.
The Fever, despite missing Caitlin Clark and half their rotation, including Ari McDonald, Sydney Colson, Chloe Bibby, Damaris Dantas, and Sophie herself, had managed to pull off a dramatic playoff win. Fans were on their feet, the team was hyped, and everyone should have been basking in that postseason energy. But instead, we got the surreal image of Sophie, in her brace, standing at midcourt, only to be approached aggressively by league security. No scuffle, no violation, no reason for confrontation, yet suddenly she was treated like some kind of threat. Think about the optics here. Sophie Cunningham, clearly injured, unable to sprint if she wanted to, being leaned on by a security guard who looked determined to escalate what should have been nothing. The camera caught it perfectly. Sophie's expression moving from puzzled to annoyed to the unmistakable Cunningham glare that fans know all too well. That's the look of someone saying, "Really? This is what you're doing right now?" And frankly, she had every right to give it. The moment hit social media almost instantly. Within minutes, clips of Sophie's stare down were everywhere, and the reaction? Pure outrage. Not because Sophie overreacted, but because fans could see with their own eyes how unnecessary the whole thing was. It wasn't enforcement, it was harassment, and it plays directly into the frustrating narrative that has followed Sophie throughout her career. She's always painted as the villain. Because Sophie doesn't toe the WNBA's party line, she's outspoken, she challenges narratives. She's confident, unapologetic, and refuses to shrink back just because people want her to. And for that, she's been treated differently by rival fans, by media outlets, and now apparently by the league's own staff. This is the same Sophie Cunningham who trends regularly on Twitter, whose clips rack up clicks, and whose fan base is one of the loudest in women's basketball. She's good for business, but instead of embracing her, the WNBA seems intent on turning her into a problem. Comments poured in across Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Some said flat out, Sophie gets treated this way because she doesn't match the league's preferred image. Others highlighted the racial and cultural double standards at play. If Angel Reese or Paige Beckers had been in Sophie's spot, the narrative would have been flipped. Look at their passion, their leadership. But Sophie Cunningham in a leg brace, suddenly she's the problem. Fans weren't buying it, and they let the league know it. Hashtags like #FreeSophie and #WNBA exposed trended within hours. And here's the kicker, Sophie didn't even escalate. She stood her ground. She didn't back down, but she didn't explode either. She just held her space, glared, and refused to be bullied. In other words, she showed more professionalism than the very security guard who provoked the confrontation, and that's why the clip went viral. It wasn't drama she caused, it was drama the league created. Now let's connect some dots. We've seen similar incidents before. Remember when refs felt uncomfortable scandal with Dejounai Carrington, and suddenly security had to step in. The league rushed to defend Carrington, the Players Association rallied around her, and everyone framed it as unfair treatment. So why the radio silence when the exact same thing happened to Sophie? Why is it only fans calling out the double standard while the league leadership stays silent? Check this out right here. This isn't just about one overzealous cop, it's about the WNBA's ongoing problem with players who don't fit the mold. Caitlin Clark has been living this reality since her rookie year, getting hacked, shoved, taunted, and targeted on the court while refs swallow their whistles and the league shrugs it off. Sophie, meanwhile, has been cast as the villain for years. Combine those two storylines and you start to see a disturbing trend. The WNBA doesn't know how to handle stars who don't fit their preferred narrative. Instead of embracing them, they marginalize them. And the irony, both Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham are exactly the kind of players the league should be celebrating. They're marketable, they're popular, and they drive engagement. Sophie, even when injured, gets fans talking. Clark, she's the biggest draw in women's basketball history. Yet instead of protecting them, the WNBA lets referees and staff mistreat them. And when fans see it, they get frustrated. Not just with the moment, but with the league as a whole. The fallout was immediate. Within hours, fans were flooding comment sections, ripping the WNBA for embarrassing Sophie during what should have been a joyful celebration. People pointed out how the league had once tried to investigate fans for booing Angel Reese, or how they brushed aside flagrant fouls against Caitlin Clark as just part of the game. The same pattern is playing out here. Selective enforcement, selective outrage, selective protection, and every time it happens, the league's credibility takes another hit. And let's be clear, this isn't just bad optics, it's bad business. The WNBA keeps saying they want growth, respect, and mainstream relevance, but you can't achieve any of that when your biggest moments are overshadowed by viral clips of your players being harassed by your own staff. Fans don't want to see their favorite stars silenced or sidelined. What they want is basketball played, celebrated, and respected. And here's where the story really snowballs, because the more fans talked about Sophie's confrontation, the more they started digging. They began piecing together the bigger picture, the repeated double standards, the mistreatment, the repeated failures to protect players like Clark and Sophie. And suddenly, this wasn't just a viral clip, it became a case study in everything wrong with the WNBA's leadership, officiating, and priorities. Here's where things take a sharp turn from frustrating to flat out revealing, because Sophie Cunningham isn't just another player in sweats on the sideline. She's outspoken, fiery, and refuses to conform to the WNBA's carefully curated narratives. She doesn't bow to league-approved storylines, doesn't soften her edges for media comfort, and certainly doesn't play the role of the smiling mascot they'd prefer. She's not Paige Buchers, the WNBA's chosen replacement for Caitlin Clark. She's not Angel Reese, the league's chosen controversy machine. Sophie is something they can't quite box in, and for that she's been a target for years. Here's the irony, that very defiance, the unwillingness to play nice with the league's preferred image, has made her popular. People love her because she's real, she's unfiltered, she's willing to say the thing everyone else is too scared to say. That's precisely the kind of energy a league desperate for mainstream relevance should be celebrating. But instead of embracing her as a draw, the WNBA seems determined to minimize her impact. Look at the marketing. How many times have you seen Sophie front and center in WNBA promos? Barely any, yet her name trends constantly, her highlights rack up clicks, and her interviews get replayed more than players the league pushes twice as hard. When controversies flare, notice the difference. If Sophie gets in a dust-up, she's branded the villain, but if Angel Reese does the same thing, suddenly it's called passion and swagger. Fans see it, and they're not stupid. The favoritism is obvious, and when a leg-braced Sophie got shouted at by a cop for daring to care about her teammates, that hypocrisy reached a new low. There was no logical answer, except the uncomfortable one fans are already whispering. Sophie Cunningham is being singled out, and that's where the damage stretches beyond Sophie herself, because casual fans, many of them pulled in by Caitlin Clark's star power, are watching too. These are the newcomers who dip their toes into WNBA basketball for the first time this season, only to see nonsense like this play out. They weren't talking about Lexi Hull's heroic steal, they weren't talking about the Fever's grit, they were talking about Sophie versus the mall cop. When outsiders see a league more focused on drama than basketball, they don't walk away impressed. They walk away convinced the WNBA is unserious, and that perception is lethal. Fans unleashed their fury online, and it wasn't polite. Comment sections were filled with blistering attacks on Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, blasting her for presiding over what they called the most embarrassing league in professional sports. Some went further, calling for her resignation and accusing her of turning the WNBA into a circus act. When fans care more about your controversies than your competition, that's not growth, that's collapse disguised as buzz. Meanwhile, Sophie herself handled the mess better than anyone else could have. She didn't blow up, didn't feed the drama, and didn't hand the league ammunition. She stood firm, didn't retreat, and let her body language say it all. "You won't intimidate me." And the fans noticed. They flooded her social media with support, turning her into the hero of the night. Once again, Sophie proved that when the league tries to diminish her, it only strengthens her base. And then came her actual response. And so in classic Cunningham fashion, she brushed it off with humor. No angry press conference, no bitter rant, just a subtle jab that reminded everyone she's in control of her own narrative. That's the kicker here. The league thinks targeting Sophie weakens her, but every time they try, her popularity only grows. Fans love an underdog who refuses to be silenced, and Sophie embodies that perfectly. Of course, this isn't a standalone issue. The WNBA has a disturbing track record of failing to protect and promote the very players who drive its success. Look at Caitlin Clark. For 2 seasons, she's taken harder fouls than anyone else, constantly hacked and shoved with minimal whistles. The refs let it slide, the league shrugs it off, and fans are left furious at the lack of protection. Or take Lexi Hull. Her playoff heroics barely got a passing mention in league media, even as fans hailed her as clutch. And now Sophie gets humiliated by league security in the middle of a celebration. It's not coincidence, it's a pattern. The WNBA wants to sell a narrative of collective growth. Everyone's contributing. The league is rising together. The truth is uglier. Leadership picks favorites and pushes others to the mark. That kind of selective promotion isn't just unfair, it's catastrophic. You can't demand loyalty from fans while mistreating their favorites. Eventually, people stop showing up, and when that happens, no TV contract or sponsorship deal will patch the hole. That's why the Fever's playoff run should have been a moment of triumph. Even without Caitlin Clark, even with half the roster banged up, they managed to win. That was the headline. Instead, it got overshadowed by a rent-a-cop barking at Sophie Cunningham. The league could have highlighted Lexi Hull's defensive brilliance, Aaliyah Boston's steady dominance, Kelsey Mitchell's leadership, or the resilience of a short-handed roster. Instead, fans are mocking the WNBA over mall cop antics. That's not just embarrassing, it's malpractice. And at the center of it all sits Sophie Cunningham, whose only crime was caring about her team, wearing a brace, limping, clearly injured, and somehow treated as if she were storming the court. That one scene told fans everything they needed to know about how the WNBA treats players who don't fit their mold. And the backlash isn't dying down, it's building. Every clip, every tweet, every meme adds fuel to the fire. Fans are already framing Sophie as the underdog hero standing up to a league intent on sidelining her. The league can try to spin it, they can issue bland PR statements, they can downplay the moment, but it won't work. The people have already decided Sophie was wronged, and the league looks ridiculous again. And that's why this incident matters so much, because once more, the narrative isn't about basketball, it's about the WNBA's inability to get out of its own way. Do you think Sophie is being singled out? Let us know down in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.